Joining us right now is David Olcott, and we're going to talk about what's going on with Canada and Mexico. I mean, is there going to be a battle at the border, David? Or is Trump now looking like a genius because the two sides are talking? And to just kind of set it up for everybody, Trump wanted to charge 25% tariff for Canada, 25% Mexico. Now Mexico's sending 10 grand or 10,000 soldiers to stop the drugs, and now Trudeau wants to talk to Trump. So where are we at right now with this?
Well, we're getting to witness for maybe the first time in our lifetime this very high-stakes negotiation poker, if you will, and that's what's being played out right in the midst of all these things happening. And something that probably should have happened for a long time, but the Trump administration is getting it done.
Which is, yeah. I mean, you have to wait and see what happens, obviously.
Right.
I mean, because we'll see but he comes out, guns blaring, and he says, that's it. And when I saw the 25%, I was like, that's not going to happen. Something's got to give. So I'm not surprised. We'll get to China in a minute. But, I mean, so what do you think at the end of the day happens? Because right now he's talking about the drug trade, right? Which I think is impossible to stop. You could have 1 million soldiers at the border because of addiction in America. I don't know if or around the world. I don't know if you're ever going to stop it. But because the cartels run Mexico, right? As far as I'm concerned. I mean, what's the end game here? Does it really work?
Well, with that really high-powered negotiation, you've got to have this leverage in between them because the tariffs aren't really the leverage he's playing with, from my standpoint. And the real thing is what does Mexico really want out of this? What do they – okay, they don't want tariffs because that's going to really impact their ability to be able to send imports and exports, of course. Right. But their real thing that they're after is the manufacturing jobs that are coming from China because the world is changing right now in such a dramatic fashion. So all those manufacturing jobs that we've had across the world are now being focused on Canada and Mexico, and that's what they really want. All those jobs keep those politicians in power. Getting those jobs over those parts of the country are just huge for them.
Do jobs in Mexico help their battle against the drug trade?
Well, yes. That's exactly what the hope is. But there's a lot of entrenched stuff that we have to be able to do with the drug. The first thing, from my perspective, is to be able to stop the cartel managing those things in our own country, in our own forests. We've really got to take a look at that first.
Well, explain.
So right now, a lot of the drug trade that's being produced or the marijuana use that's legal in our country, from my understanding, is being actually created in our national forests. People have run into these places over and over again, and they're like, hey, why are the cartels across the border in our forests actually creating these kind of cannabis sanctuaries? And how do we stop those first?
Well, how do you stop it? Because it's legal. How do you stop it?
Well, who's running those things? Because a lot of the cartels aren't, focusing on the different things that are making, marijuana safe for Americans. If we're going to use it, let's make sure it's safe and run through the proper channels, not being run by an outside organization that uses all kinds of wild chemicals and everything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, but, the cocaine, listen, as long as I've been alive, people want it. I mean, I've never used it. It scares the living. Listen, I'm not a saint by any stretch. I certainly drank enough beer to choke a dinosaur. But, and I think it's all the same. I think people that look at alcohol, it's all numbing. It's all medication. So, but like the cocaine stuff, it just won't go away. I mean, Mexico makes so much damn money on it. It just will not. It just will not go away. The addiction is crazy.
And there's some conversations about that Mexico doesn't want to stop that trade either because that's such a big part of their ability to be able to pay off debt. So lots of conversations to be able to have about it. It's really just starting at our borders first.
David, I don't follow you on that. The cocaine trade helps the country of Mexico pay off debt?
So income coming in from that starts to help out the economy in those countries, especially Mexico.
Right. Because the cartels spend money in Mexico. All right, I understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that money transfers up into the government, and that gets to pay off those debts. And they have huge debts for the rest of the world.
Yeah. So what do you think's going on with China, the 10% there? What's his motivation with that?
Well, I definitely think that, being in alignment. So Mexico and Canada are a little easier fixed because they want those manufacturing jobs. Those jobs are leaving China right now. So what's the leverage point? The tariffs aren't enough. what does China really want is the real question. And that's the big unknown, is what is the Trump administration going to be able to give to the Chinese folks to be able to, hey, not do these tariffs in place of this? And that's still the big question.
Well, but also 10%, if you pass it, look, when tariffs are implemented, it's always passed along to the consumer. 25% is a big chunk. But if you want to buy imported goods from China, is 10% a deal breaker?
Well, it was 25% for the other two, right? That made it really stand up. Why only 10% for China? And that's an interesting dynamic that I really don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I don't think they have the same negotiating. Obviously, Trump doesn't have the leverage with China that he had with the other two countries.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's something going on there. But because as Americans, we're so damn spoiled, even when we don't have the money, we pay for it. That's why the credit card companies are killing us, So, or we're killing ourselves, I should say. But I just think goods, 10% is. I just think people will pay for it. I don't know what that will do for Trump. In that regard, is there any angle here that he's doing this to create jobs in America?
I think that's exactly what, all of our politicians really want, is how to bring those jobs back to America. So it's really about focusing on, okay, if the manufacturing is really changing across globally and starting to be able to start finally focusing in Mexico and Canada, how do we continue to bring those jobs here when we have a workforce that really doesn't want a lot of those jobs? So that becomes our next issue. How do we do that?
That's a problem, because if when I've talked to people in the service industry, for example,
yes.
Okay, there are people in America without jobs that will not work in the service industry.
Yes.
They refuse to. They'd rather take unemployment or lie, right? So, do you have to create, and if you take a look at companies that are international companies and they can make the product cheaper overseas than in America, I think it's a tough road ahead for the president.
And now I'm going to say a word that's probably going to get me in trouble with a lot of the listeners, but this is where the immigration conversation finally comes in.
All right, well, that's a tease. And we're going to talk about that next, because that's a big issue too. Okay, David Olcott is joining us. The book is Swords of Illumination. Check it out on Amazon. More with David coming up next on WBZ.
NightSide with Dan Ray on WBZ, Boston's News Radio.
Okay, Gary in for Dan tonight. 617-254-1030, the author of Swords of Illumination, a book about how to get back that feeling of a sense of destiny. David Olcott, that sounds really deep.
Yes, sir, it is. It took me a long time to write that.
Before we get back to the talk, what exactly is it about? Why should I read it?
So many of us are walking through this life with a sense of, hey, what went wrong here? What's this life really about? And that book is really 35 years that I've been really focusing on finding out what this place is really about. And it's really about finding out how to not change the world necessarily, but to change your experience of the world we're having. Those people who are very successful on this planet, man, have this incredible ability to create their own identity and then start really living that life based upon that identity, which is very different from how most of us live by the whim or reaction to people's events in their lives, stuff like this. People really want to get back to being who they really are, creating that sense of destiny. That's a book for you.
It takes a lot of concentration. You have to turn out the noise. You really do, because listen, if you have to shut out the noise from your relatives.
Yes.
You got to turn out the noise. Look, you're talking about a guy who left a small town in Maine to be a broadcaster in Boston, and nobody thinks you're gonna. What? Are you kidding me? You'll be back in 6 months. You just gotta shut out the noise. Perfect. Yeah. Anyways, so it's a good book. Check it out. Have I read it? No, but we like Dave. All right, so let's get back to the tariffs here. You just mentioned the I word, immigration. How does that all?
Here we go.
How does it? This is oof. How does this all tie into it?
So it's interesting because making connections is what we really do here at Samurai Success, helping business owners really see the connection, because connections really help you with comprehension to truly understand something so you can apply it. So these connections that we're talking about, it's like, how does immigration have anything to do with interest rates, inflation, and this whole thing we've been dealing with, and it's actually connected. And that's why when you see some of these graphs of the last administration pouring all these immigrants in here is because a lot of the jobs that people just do not want to have. Let me give you an example. Landscaping. Right? Landscaping is one of those things that a lot of the workforce just doesn't want to deal with today. It's too hot, it's too cold, whatever it looks like. And the immigration force takes over those jobs, which then lowers that price again. So the consumer then is dealing with a really high price. Nobody wants to do it, supply and demand. And all of a sudden, you have a whole labor force now wanting to do that job. The prices come back to something that's more affordable.
I'll tell you, in my town, the people that you talk about landscaping, some of the contractors that I've used, immigrants, and I paid them very well. Phenomenal work ethic. Phenomenal. Unbelievable, great work. Phenomenal work. And they're excited. There's an opportunity to do it. You can't begrudge them. I mean, you really can't. It's like I'll call my contractor immediately. He's there. Look, he's not cheap. It's fair, but they're doing the work. How does this affect America long term? This work ethic. I talked to a consultant once, from one of the big firms. I can't remember the name of it. If it, something, it's something that if you hire him, it costs an arm and a leg out of a skyscraper in New York. And he felt if our work ethic didn't change with this generation, our place in the world is in jeopardy. Is that an overstatement?
I don't think it is. As a matter of fact, I think that's why you're seeing so much pressure on machine technology and machine intelligence, because we're looking at these robots to save our labor force. And the big challenge for us, of course, is the demographics. I mean, kids today are very different when it came to us. We identified work as our identity, who we are,
right.
Our ability to work and make money and do all this stuff. And theirs is so different. They're wanting to go to work, get a paycheck, and so they can go and do some kind of other experience. Their identity isn't tied to this.
I had a student. I taught at Emerson as well. And this person, I had connected him with a podcast, and they could do some podcasts and get some experience. And I said, would you like to do an additional one? So it would be like maybe 4 a week. And they said, oh, no, I need some time off. And I went, what? We have just spoiled this generation, and I'm trying to go do an about face a little bit in my house, but we have we've screwed this generation up. I blame the parents. We have been way too easy on them, way too easy.
Well, let me add to that mixture of that stuff. Let's imagine you're a smart kid, and by the way, these kids aren't unintelligent, man. They're
by no means.
Smart.
No.
And so now you're a child, right? And you watch your mom and dad come home, or your mom or your single dad, whatever it is. They come home, and all they do is complain about work. What do you think that teaches us?
Yeah. Right.
Gary, I mean, seriously, we have done this to ourselves.
Right.
We've got to take responsibility for getting back on track. That's the missing element.
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. They hear us bitch all the time and so forth, and yeah, that's an excellent point. I didn't think about that. When we talk about we don't go on vacation, it's been years since I've had a vacation. I never have enough, and these kids are listening. We have taught them exactly to be the kids they are today, the men and women. Well, there's also a feeling that you can be 23 or 24 before you move out of the house. Or, or 23 or 24 before you're off the payroll, I mean, that's got to stop. That to me, that gets a little crazy. Back to I just had this on the immigration thing. Now, the Democrats will point out to Obama deported a lot of people. Biden deported a lot of people. And now, obviously, Trump is running rampant here doing it. Are those fair comments? Is Trump doing anything differently as opposed to past administrations? Well, it's just a couple weeks into his administration kind of stuff, but this is what he ran on, and he has a clear mandate, which he's following through with so far. Just says, I'm going to start taking the folks that did not go into the proper channels and a realistic immigration policy, and we're going to return you back to your countries, and you're going to take them.
And it's just something we haven't seen before.
Well, we haven't seen it to this degree, but
Yes.
past administrations are claiming that they did the same thing.
Maybe they just didn't publicize this.
Well, they did. I mean, no. I mean, this is what he does. I mean, this is.
Right.
I mean, he's P.T. Barnum.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what he does. Did you see the movie The Apprentice?
I did. Yes.
Unbelievable.
Very much.
You have to watch it, people. And I understand it's Hollywood. We understand it's been dramatized and so forth. But I do believe the spine is pretty accurate. And this guy has been denied. I mean, the first thing that they talk about in the film that he learns from Roy Cohn is deny, 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 deny. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. And listen, deny, 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 and he just got elected again. Not only did he get elected the first time, not having any government experience, he got bounced and then got elected again. It's amazing. By deny, deny, deny. If people haven't watched The Apprentice, you have to watch it. I understand it's a movie, but there's some truth to it, don't you think?
I would agree.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just absolutely laughable. All right, so what should we look at down the road? What's coming down the road? What do you think?
Well, we're definitely, as I think the conversation that's having is this level of chaos we're going to be dealing with. We're going to be dealing with this for a while, and business owners specifically, how this affects us is that opportunity really exists in this place of chaos. And that's the real message I'd like to share with people is that, yes, there's going to be craziness that you're not used to. We've never seen anything like this before. And yet, if you're really, really wise about this, you can really take advantage of this and really be able to help and be of service people in your business. That's the real great message.
So you see an opportunity.
I see a huge opportunity in the next 4 years. Huge opportunity.
Can you be a little more specific? I don't know if you can because you're talking about it in such a broad sense, but can you give me some specific ideas or examples?
Well, you can already see that the Wall Street, what it's reacting to today, of course, right? The ups and downs and things like this. And I will tell you, every great investor we've ever studied has made more money in downturns than they have in upturns. So there's a very, very interesting perspective right there. This wild roller coaster that there's opportunity in that. You just have to spend time. And like you said earlier, Gary, is just you got to just break the noise. Why you're being so successful in this lifetime is you got away from everybody else's chatter about you, Gary. You've got to figure out who you are and what you want in this lifetime. And that's when opportunity shows itself to you.
So buy low, sell high.
Perfect.
I mean, that's as old as the hills. But yeah, it's true. Yeah, that now more than ever. I mean, and that's something I tell my son. You know, where I go, and my kids, just turn out the noise. You got to pay your bills, obviously, but just definitely turn out the noise. And my kid at 17 was looking at the market. I said, dude, that's one thing I will tell this generation, and I've told my kids, look at the stock market, take any money that you have, and start investing as soon as you can. Because I don't know how you're going to make extra money. Like, I don't know how you're going to get ahead. You can get into sales and you can make big commissions, but I don't know if you don't play the stock market from when you're 18 and put some in it, I don't know how people are going to get ahead. Are you going to work overtime? Is there going to be overtime? With AI, will there be double overtime for people? I mean, I come from a town where we had a paper mill that people with a high school education could work double time on Sunday. They were union. That meant they made $40 an hour on a Sunday. Those days are gone. Am I right?
Agreed, sir. Agreed.
Well,
not cost effective for the business owner.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. People have to look at them. Young people have to look at themselves as an individual corporation or entity.
Yes.
Maybe I should write a book, Dave.
Perfect.
All right. Well, listen, check it out. Swords of Illumination, David Olcott, Samurai for Success. And I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll do it again down the road whenever I'm filling in.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You got it. David Olcott with us here.